My father handed the company to my golden boy brother at his 60th birthday, so I quit overnight and built a rival empire that crushed them. I've been lurking on Reddit for years, reading stories like this and never imagined I'd have one to contribute. But, after what happened last month, I need to get this off my chest, since it has been eating me alive. 34 years old, and this entire situation began when I was a child but truly burst about 2 years ago. To understand why everything went so well, you must first understand my family's destructive dynamics. My father Robert is 62 years old and owns Harrington Sons, a medium-sized construction company. I started it from nothing in the 1980s. It grew to roughly 50 staff, working on commercial and residential projects across 3 counties. Growing up, that corporation was practically our religion. Every dinner conversation revolved around jobs, contracts, which teams were performing, and which suppliers were providing us with the best deals. The "and Sons" section was supposed to refer to me and my younger brother Ryan, a 29-year-old guy. Dad made this plain from the moment we could walk. "Someday you boys are going to take over this empire I built," he'd say, usually while staring at blueprints on our kitchen table. "Harrington Sons is going to be your legacy." But here's where things go wrong. Dad decided Ryan was the actual construction worker, and I was just a liability he'd have to deal with. Ryan was one of those kids who seemed to excel at every athletic activity. He was a star athlete in high school and could fix engines by the age of 14. He exuded an air of effortless assurance that drew others in. Dad ate that fucked up. "Look at Ryan," he'd boast to anyone who listened. "Kid's got natural leadership. Born for this business." Meanwhile, I was the one who was paying attention in class, learning about business management, cost estimation, and project management software certification. I'd spend my summers working on Dad's job sites. Instead of being applauded for grasping the technical aspect, I was reprimanded for not being hands-on enough. The tipping point came when I was 19 and suggested that Dad computerize the business processes. It was 2009, and he was still doing everything on paper: estimates, scheduling, payroll, and inventory. It was a nightmare. I discovered a construction management software that could streamline everything, save money, and eliminate errors. Dad's response: "Real construction workers don't need computers, son. We build things with our hands, not by staring at screens all day." Ryan, who was 14 at the time and hardly knew which end of a hammer to handle, nodded along as if he understood anything about operating a business. "Yeah, Mark, construction is about getting dirty, not playing with gadgets." This became the theme of my life. Every time I sought to implement modern business methods in the organization, I was told I was overthinking it or making everything too hard. Dad actually said, "College is fine, son, but this is the real world. You can't learn construction from a textbook." Ryan, on the other hand, dropped out of community college after only 1 semester because he didn't enjoy it. Dad's reaction: "Good for you, son. Real men learn by doing." I continued working for Dad throughout college and beyond graduation, hoping that he'd ultimately see that I understood the business aspect better than anyone else. I overhauled our filing systems, established proper project costing methods, and even constructed a simple database to manage equipment upkeep. All without being asked, and on my own time. But every family event, company BBQ, and supplier meeting had the same story. Ryan was the golden boy who truly understood the building business. And I was just Mark, the guy who was good at paperwork. The favoritism was ridiculous. Ryan would arrive late to job sites, spend half the day on his phone, then depart early for whatever party or date he had arranged. Dad would simply grin and remark, "Boys will be boys." I'd work 60-hour weeks, solve logistical issues, negotiate lower material costs, and get a shrug at best. When Ryan turned 21, Dad began discussing succession plans. Not to me. I discovered out about these chats after overhearing Mom conversing on the phone with her sister. Apparently, Dad was already planning to delegate additional authority to Ryan, despite the fact that Ryan had never managed anything more sophisticated than a 7-man framing crew. I tried to talk to Dad about it directly. This happened around 3 years ago, when I was 31 and had been in the company for more than a decade. I'd just completed our largest commercial contract ever, a $2.3 million office complex that came in under budget and ahead of schedule. "Dad," I began during a break one day, "I think we should talk about the future of the company. I've got ideas about expansion, maybe getting into some specialty niches. I've been researching." He shut me off. "Mark, you do good work. Don't get me wrong, but running this company takes a different kind of man than you are." I wasn't expecting it. "What do you mean?" "Construction is a tough business. You need someone who can command respect from the crews, Someone who understands what it means to get his hands dirty. Ryan's got that natural authority. Men follow him. Dad, I've been working on sites since I was 16. I know every aspect of this business better than. Knowing and leading are different things, son. Ryan's got what it takes to be the boss. You're more of a support guy. There's nothing wrong with that. Every good leader needs someone to handle the details. That conversation tormented me for several months. Support the guy. After everything I'd done, all the changes I'd made, and all the money I'd saved the company, I was only the support man. But the real kick in the teeth came 2 years ago, at Dad's 60th birthday celebration. He'd reserved the back room at this steakhouse, inviting the entire extended family, crucial staff, and some of our most important clients. I assumed it was just a birthday celebration. I was mistaken. About halfway through supper, Dad stood up and tapped his glass. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Turning 60 has got me thinking about the future, about legacy, about what kind of company I want to leave behind. My stomach began churning. I could see where this was headed. Harrington Sons has been my life's work, Dad explained. But a man's got to know when it's time to pass the torch. That's why I'm proud to announce that Ryan Harrington will be taking over as president of Harrington Sons, effective immediately. The audience gave a standing ovation. Ryan sprang up, grinning like he'd won the lottery, and hugged his father. Mom was shedding happy tears. I just sat there, witnessing my entire future be handed to my younger brother in front of 40 people. Ryan gave this statement about carrying on the Harrington legacy and moving the company into the future while maintaining traditional values. It was completely messed. The youngster couldn't tell the difference between gross margin and markup if his life depended on it, but everyone took it in. After the crowd dissipated, I cornered Dad in the parking lot. "What the hell was that?" I inquired. "You didn't even discuss this with me. I've been working for this company for 15 years. Dad sighed as if I were being ridiculous. "Mark, I told you. Ryan's the right man for this job. He's got the personality for it, the leadership skills. Construction crews need someone they respect." "Respect, Dad? Half our guys have been asking me for technical guidance since they started. I'm the one who—" "You're good at the technical stuff. I've never said you weren't. But running a construction company isn't about spreadsheets and computers. It's about being tough, making hard decisions, and commanding respect." I laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. Natural authority? Ryan's never managed a budget over $50,000. He doesn't know our insurance requirements. He's never dealt with permitting issues. He couldn't read a complex blueprint if you gave him a week. His face tightened. "Son, I'm going to say this once. Ryan is the future of this company because he's man enough to handle it. Some people are born leaders, and some people are born followers. There's no shame in knowing which one you are." When he said those words, everything changed. "You've never been man enough to run this business, Mark. You're too soft, too academic, and too concerned with everyone's feelings. Ryan's got the balls to make the tough calls. That's what it takes." I stood there in that parking lot, watching my father walk away from me as if I were just another disappointed employee rather than his son. That night I took a life-changing decision. If I wasn't man enough to lead Harrington Sons, I'd demonstrate my true masculinity by creating something greater. The following morning, I strolled into Dad's office and resigned. "You're making a mistake, son," he stated without looking up from his paperwork. "Where are you going to go? You've never worked anywhere else." I didn't reply. "Don't worry about me, Dad. I'll figure it out." Dad had no idea, and neither did anyone else in my family, that I had been silently preparing for this possibility for months. Throughout the evenings I worked late at the office. I documented everything: client lists, supplier relationships, pricing strategies, and project procedures. I'd been putting together a comprehensive picture of how Harrington Sons operated, what our competitive advantages were, and more crucially, where our shortcomings were. I had also been networking. Construction is a relationship business, and over the course of 15 years, I'd developed strong relationships with subcontractors, suppliers, and even certain clients. People recognized my work, valued my attention to detail, and believed my word. Dad always believed Ryan's backslapping style was important, but the majority of our recurring business came from clients who knew I would personally oversee their projects. Within a week after resigning, I had submitted the paperwork to establish Pinnacle Construction Solutions. I deliberately chose the name Pinnacle, implying that we were the pinnacle of quality and professionalism, and Construction Solutions indicating that we addressed problems rather than simply throwing muscle at them. I started small, using my savings to rent a small office space in a nearby business park, purchasing some basic equipment, and hiring 2 people I'd worked with at Harrington Sons who were fed up with Ryan's nasty management style. My first contract was for a small house remodeling around $15,000, which I could complete mostly by myself. But I had larger plans. One of Harrington Sons' most serious flaws was a lack of technological proficiency. Dad's insistence on doing things the old way made them extremely inefficient in comparison to what was achievable. I'd spent years watching us lose money on projects due to bad scheduling, insufficient cost tracking, and communication breakdowns between the office and field team. I made significant investments in construction management software, project tracking systems, and mobile technologies for field teams. While Harrington Sons still used paper timesheets and handwritten change orders, my team had tablets that allowed them to examine blueprints, submit daily reports, manage material usage, and interact instantaneously with the office. The efficiency gains were amazing. I could quote tasks more correctly because I had real-time cost information. Better communication mechanisms enabled me to detect problems before they became costly disasters. I could schedule more efficiently since I knew exactly where my staff were and what they were working on. More crucially, I could demonstrate to clients just what they were paying for. While Harrington Sons continued to make broad estimations based on their experience, I was able to provide specific breakdowns of how their money would be spent. My second contract involved a $40,000 kitchen remodeling, followed by a $75,000 bathroom upgrade. Word spread about a new construction company that completed projects on schedule and within budget. I also focused on the commercial market, which Dad had always struggled with. He excelled at domestic and small commercial works, but anything demanding intricate coordination or rigorous adherence to laws made him anxious. I positioned Pinnacle as the organization capable of handling intricate projects such as medical facilities, educational buildings, and anything else that required specialist understanding. 6 months after launching Pinnacle, I secured my first major commercial contract, a $400,000 refurbishment of a medical office building. It was the type of job that Harrington Sons would struggle with. There are numerous regulatory standards, strict deadlines, and no tolerance for errors. I crushed it. I finished 2 weeks early, 8% under budget, and the customer was so pleased that they quickly hired me for their next location. During this time, I seldom spoke with my family. Dad would occasionally call to see when I'd come to my senses and return to the family business. Ryan never called. He was probably too busy playing CEO. Mom would try to guilt me into attending family gatherings. "Your father misses you," she would remark. "This whole thing is just pride. You boys should work together." But I was no longer interested in working together. I wanted to prove a point. The breakthrough happened roughly 18 months after I started Pinnacle. I'd been developing relationships with general contractors who handled large commercial projects, portraying myself as a dependable subcontractor for specialized work. One of them approached me with a large project, a $2.8 million restoration of a business headquarters downtown. It was exactly the type of work Harrington Sons had always desired but had never been qualified to do. Complex mechanical systems, high-end finishes, unrealistic deadlines, and a perfectionist client. I spent 3 weeks putting together my bid, which included cost estimates down to the cent, a full project timeline, comprehensive quality control systems, and references from every big task I had performed. When I submitted it, I knew it was flawless. I landed the job. More crucially, I outbid Harrington Sons by $200,000, offering a faster completion time. The general contractor then told me that Harrington Sons' concept appeared amateurish in comparison to mine. "Your documentation was incredible," the man said. Their bid was basically a number on a napkin with a handshake. That's when I knew I had Dad right where I needed him. The downtown headquarters project established my reputation. Not only did I accomplish it flawlessly, but I also finished ahead of schedule and under budget. The client was so impressed that he hired me for 2 additional locations. The general contractor began referring me for additional important jobs. Within 6 months of finishing the job, Pinnacle Construction Solutions had 15 workers and $8 million in contracted contracts. Meanwhile, Harrington Sons were floundering. I wasn't immediately competing against them. I was pursuing larger, more difficult projects that they couldn't manage anyway. However, my accomplishment began to have an impact on their reputation through comparison. Potential clients would say, "We heard about this new company, Pinnacle Construction Solutions. They did that amazing headquarters renovation downtown. We're thinking of going with them instead." Contractors who used to subcontract with Harrington Sons began to choose my company for specialized work. Suppliers began offering me better terms because my payment schedule was more consistent and my volume increased faster. The major blow came when I began targeting Harrington Sons' core clientele directly. I had spent 15 years developing relationships with their customers. I knew exactly what they valued, what bothered them about working for Harrington Sons, and what they'd pay more for. I created proposals that addressed each of their concerns. Thompson Industries had partnered with Harrington Sons for 8 years. They completed approximately $300,000 in building maintenance and repair work each year. A steady source of income for Dad. I planned a meeting with their facilities manager, whom I had worked with dozens of times while at Harrington Sons. "Mark," he remarked when I went into his office, "I heard you started your own company. How's that going?" "Really well," I answered. "Actually, that's why I'm here. I know you've been happy with Harrington Sons, but I wanted to show you what we could do differently." I presented a thorough facilities management proposal that was unlike anything Harrington Sons had ever offered. Rather than simply responding to problems as they arise, I proposed a proactive maintenance system that includes predictive scheduling, extensive reporting, and guaranteed response times. More importantly, I promised to perform it for 15% less than what they were paying Harrington Sons while delivering superior service. "This is impressive," the facilities manager commented, flipping through my presentation. "Harrington Sons never offered anything like this level of documentation and planning." "We're not Harrington Sons," I corrected myself. "We're focused on solving problems, not just throwing labor at them." 2 weeks later, Thompson Industries terminated their contract with Harrington Sons and signed with Pinnacle. That was only the beginning. Over the next 8 months, I diligently pursued every important Harrington Sons client. I did not compete based just on pricing. I competed on value, offering services that Harrington Sons were unable or unwilling to deliver. Advanced project management software allows clients to track progress in real time. Detailed cost reporting that revealed exactly how their money was spent. Guaranteed completion deadlines with penalties if we were late. Quality assurance processes that avoided the costly errors that had plagued some of Harrington Sons' recent projects. One by one, Harrington Sons' largest clients switched to Pinnacle Construction Solutions. Riverside Manufacturing, which made $500,000 per year, is no longer around. Central Medical Group, which earned $400,000 each year, has closed. Brookstone Property Management, $600,000 per year, gone. Each time a client transferred, I made sure to send Dad a courteous thank you note, assuring him that I would take excellent care of our mutual associates. The calls from Mom became more frequent. "Your father is worried about the business," she'd tell you. "Some of his oldest clients have left, and he believes there is someone spreading rumors about the company." I never informed him it was me. I assumed he would figure it out eventually. He did. The confrontation took place on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I was in my workplace, a proper office now, 3,000 square feet with a conference room and capacity for 20 staff. When my receptionist called, "Mark, there's a Robert Harrington here to see you. He says he's your father." I grinned. "Send him back." Dad stepped into my office, appearing as if he'd aged 5 years in the 2 years since I left Harrington Sons. His face was flushed, his hands shook slightly, and he had that expression he used to have when a task went horribly wrong. "You son of a bitch," he yelled before he even got through the door. "Nice to see you too, Dad, please take a seat." He did not sit down. Instead, he stood in front of my desk, staring around my office as if he couldn't believe what he saw. "Thompson Industries, Riverside Manufacturing, Central Medical. You've been stealing my clients." "I haven't stolen anyone," I replied without arguing. "I've been offering better service at competitive prices. Last I checked, that's called business." "Business? This is sabotage. You're trying to destroy everything I built." I took a seat and studied him. "I'm not trying to destroy anything, Dad. I'm just showing the market what real construction management looks like." His expression changed. "Real construction management? Do you think you know something about construction that I don't?" "I do. I know how to leverage technology to improve efficiency, how to provide full information and transparency to clients, and how to regularly deliver projects on time and within budget." "And I assume Ryan doesn't know any of that," I smiled. "How is Ryan doing, by the way?" "I heard Harrington Sons lost the Riverside Manufacturing contract. That's got to hurt." Dad clenched his jaw. "We're fine." "Are you? Because from what I hear, you've lost about $2 million in annual revenue over the last 8 months, which must be putting some strain on cash flow." The truth was, I knew exactly how Harrington Sons was doing financially. Construction is a small sector in our area, so word spreads. Dad was struggling to meet payroll, had laid off 6 employees, and was behind on payments to numerous suppliers. You planned this, Dad continued, his voice softer now. This whole thing, you planned to destroy my company. I plan to build a better company, I countered. If that happens to put pressure on Harrington Sons, well, that's the free market at work. Dad sank on the chair opposite from my desk. For the first time since walking in, he appeared defeated rather than enraged. Why? He inquired. I gave you a job, taught you the business, treated you like family. Treated me like family? I cracked up. Dad, you told me I wasn't man enough to run the business. You gave everything to Ryan without even considering what I'd contributed. You made it clear that in your eyes, I'd never be anything more than a support guy. I was trying to be realistic about your strengths and weaknesses. No, I answered, standing up and strolling around my desk. You were playing favorites, just like you always did. Ryan was the golden boy who could do no wrong, and I was the disappointing son who didn't measure up to your idea of what a man should be. I motioned around my workplace. Well, this is what your not man enough son built. Pinnacle Construction Solutions did $12 million in revenue last year. We're on track for $18 million this year. We employ 28 people, and every single one of them makes more money than they would at Harrington Sons. Dad glanced at me as if he was seeing me for the first time. How? He inquired. By doing everything you said couldn't be done. By using technology instead of fighting it. By providing clients with transparency instead of asking them to trust us blindly. By treating our employees like professionals instead of treating them like laborers who should be grateful for whatever we give them. I reclined my chair. You know what the funny thing is, Dad? I learned all of this working for you. Every mistake Harrington Sons made, every inefficiency, every client complaint. I was paying attention. I was learning what not to do. Dad was silent for a while, then he asked, What do you want? I want you to admit you were wrong. I want you to acknowledge that I was man enough to run the family business, and that your precious golden boy Ryan isn't. Mark, how is Ryan doing as president, by the way? Is he commanding all that respect you were so worried about? Dad's lack of response told me everything I needed to know. Let me guess, I added. Half the crew thinks he's an idiot. The other half doesn't respect him because they know he only got the job because he's your son. Suppliers don't trust him to make decisions because he doesn't understand the numbers. Clients are frustrated because he overpromises and underdelivers. It's been an adjustment period, Dad remarked softly. An adjustment period, Dad? It's been 2 years. If Ryan was going to figure it out, he would have by now. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. Want to see something interesting? This is a financial analysis I had my accountant run, comparing Harrington Sons' performance over the past 2 years versus the 2 years before that. The spreadsheet displayed everything. Revenue fell 35%. Profit margins dropped from 12% to 3%. Client retention rate decreased from 85% to 60%. The average project completion time increased by 20%. These aren't just bad numbers, Dad, they're catastrophic. Ryan isn't just failing to grow the business. He's actively destroying it. Dad gazed at the screen, as if it were displaying his death certificate. Meanwhile, I said, opening a different spreadsheet, Pinnacle's numbers look like this. Revenue growth of 400% year over year. Profit margins of 18%. Client retention rate of 95%. Average project completion time 15% faster than industry standard. I'm not just man enough to run a construction business, Dad, I'm better at it than you ever were. That broke him. Dad buried his head in his hands and began crying. I had never seen him cry before, even when his own father died. I'm sorry, he muttered. I was wrong about you. I was wrong about everything. I felt a mixture of joy and sadness as I watched him break down. This was what I was looking for. Acknowledgement, vindication, and proof that I had been correct all along. But watching my father cry in my workplace didn't feel as fantastic as I expected. It's too late for apologies, Dad. The damage has been done. He glanced up at me, tears still in his eyes. What can I do? How can I fix this? You can't. Harrington Sons is finished. Even if you fired Ryan tomorrow and begged your old clients to come back, they're not going to trust you again. You had your chance to do things right, and you chose favoritism over competence. Father wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. What's going to happen to the company? To Ryan? I honestly don't care what happens to Ryan. He made his bed when he went along with your plan to push me out. As for the company, I imagine you'll have to sell whatever assets you can and pay off your debts. If you're lucky, you might avoid personal bankruptcy. And then what? I'm 62 years old, Mark. And this is all I know. I briefly contemplated hiring him. Despite being a lousy businessman, he was nevertheless a decent construction supervisor. But then I remembered all the years I'd been told I wasn't man enough. All the adulation bestowed on Ryan while my accomplishments were ignored. All the hurt and fury that had brought me here. I guess you'll figure it out, I told you. You're a smart guy. You'll adapt. Dad rose up slowly as if everything hurt. I guess I deserve this. You do, I replied. But for what it's worth, I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it to show you wrong. He nodded and proceeded toward the door. He then came to a halt and reversed his direction. For what it's worth, son. I'm proud of what you've built here. I should have seen it sooner. Yeah, was my response. You should have. After he departed, I sat in my office for a long time, reflecting on all that had occurred. I'd gained everything I wanted, confirmation that I was better than Ryan, Dad's admission that he was wrong, and the satisfaction of watching Harrington Sons fail. But I also felt empty, as if I'd won a fight that no longer matters. That happened 3 months ago. Harrington Sons filed for bankruptcy last month. Dad had to liquidate the company's assets to repay creditors. Ryan is now working for one of our competitors, earning approximately half of what he used to, and most likely receiving the respect he deserves. Dad occasionally calls me to see if there is any employment available at Pinnacle. I have not hired him yet, but I am thinking about it. He's a good supervisor when he's not attempting to choose favorites, and we're growing quickly enough to require experienced employees. The irony is that Ryan contacted me last week, the first time we'd spoken since I quit Harrington Sons. Mark, he commented, I want to apologize. I should have stood up for you with Dad. I knew you were better at the business side than me, but I was selfish and let him play favorites. Little late for that, don't you think? Yeah, probably. But I wanted you to know that you were right. I wasn't ready to run that company. I'm not sure I'll ever be ready to run a company. So what are you going to do now? I don't know. Maybe go back to school, try to learn some of the stuff you tried to teach me. Maybe see if you'd be willing to hire me at Pinnacle. I was chuckling. You want to work for me? I want to learn how to do things right, and you're the only person I know who actually knows how to run a construction business. I have not determined what to tell him yet. Part of me believes it would be satisfying to have my golden boy brother working for me and possibly learning some humility. But a part of me believes it is best to leave the past behind. Right now my primary focus is on growing Pinnacle Construction Solutions. We'll be bidding on a $15 million hospital rehabilitation project next month, the kind of job that Harrington Sons would never have been qualified for, and the type of challenge that makes me want to get out of bed in the morning. Mom still invites me to family meals. However, the situation has changed dramatically. Instead of discussing Ryan's latest accomplishments, everyone asks me about my firm, my expansion plans, and my thoughts into the construction sector. It feels strange to be the successful son after being the disappointment for so long, but I'll take it. The funniest aspect is that Dad's colleagues and business acquaintances suddenly refer to me as the one who truly understands construction, as if they had always known I was the smart one rather than the guy who was not masculine enough to operate a construction company. I suppose the moral of the story is that sometimes you have to burn everything down to prove that you were correct all along. It isn't the most mature approach, but it certainly is pleasant. Update. Dad began working for me as a project supervisor 3 weeks ago. He called me aside on the first day of work and said, I want you to know that you're the boss here, no special treatment because I'm your father. If I screw up, fire me. So far he's been fantastic. When he's not attempting to pick favorites with his boys, he's actually a good manager. Who knew? Ryan is still considering if he wants to work with Pinnacle. I advised him that if he was serious, he should start at the bottom, general laborer. Perhaps he can work his way up to crew chief if he proves himself. No shortcuts this time. We'll see if he has the courage to swallow his pride and do the work.